Hey, what is up? How's it going? Apologize for starting a little late here. Probably should have just said 9:30 instead of 9 o'clock ish, but hey, what's up? Hey, so yeah, apologize. I started a little late here, but a little bit of a technical difficulties, but it's all taken care of now, hopefully. So again, I hope the stream quality is okay with the audio and everything. I know that there was some weird things going on with this software, so if the audio, if there's something up with the audio or something to that effect, definitely let me know. So I appreciate it, David Hawkins. I appreciate it. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I guess sort of getting into it here. Before we move on to the next episode of season 6 of Better Call Saul, Axe and Grind, I still feel like I had a couple of more thoughts about the last episode, Black and Blue. And if you saw that community post, there's two scenes in specifically that I want to discuss a little bit further. One being the just the entire premise of the Lalo Salamanca scene with his cat and mouse game, as it was described in the episode description with Gus Fring. That's the main thing I want to talk about in this scene. There's actually a couple of pretty significant plot details from the backstory of Better Call Saul, as well as Breaking Bad, that I want to discuss here in this stream here. And I feel like I need to discuss that boxing scene as well. I'm going to discuss this scene as well. I have some thoughts on this for sure. After the second and third watch of this episode, sort of going back and sort of taking a retrospective of this entire scene, I know there's been definitely some mixed feelings in respect to it following this episode airing. But yeah, so I mean, just to get into the Lalo Salamanca story first. So yeah, I talked about this a little bit in a previous video about why Lalo went to Germany, but there's actually one aspect of this story that I feel like I may have glossed over a little bit. I feel like it was only implied and I kind of didn't discuss it in this video. And the reason why I didn't do that is because I really kind of got into like a back and forth about like it was kind of hard to decipher what the characters were thinking in respect to, displaying to us the backstory of what's going on here. So I actually want to go back to this storyline in season 5 of Better Call Saul and just sort of take a look at one aspect of this storyline that I missed. Well, I wouldn't say I missed, I just sort of glossed over it and sort of implied it. But anyway, sort of getting to the scenes that were presented with here in this video, just getting into it. Tiana Riley, haven't you seen Casey Neistat's video that got like 16 million views about why I always wear sunglasses? Definitely go back and watch that, and you'll all of your questions will be answered. So pretty popular video out there. I think the title is literally called Why I Always Wear Sunglasses. So maybe you call it inspiration. Maybe it's akin to the expression of good artists borrow, great artists steal. But anyway, so where's that scene, if I'm not mistaken? God, we're trying to find this scene here. Where I probably should have prepared a little bit better. It's definitely towards the end. All right, so let's go here. And also, I can probably pull it up in this episode as well. But anyway, so going back to the storyline surrounding Lalo Salamanca. Muted, Anton. Muted? You can't hear me? Can people hear me? That comment's kind of throwing me for a loop here. But if there's a problem with the audio, yeah, I noticed there was something going up with the OBS software. That's why I was a little late here. So, am I muted right now? Can people hear? Now know you're good again. I appreciate it. So, Paul Sura, okay. David Hawkins, I appreciate it. But anyway, going back to the storyline here, the one thing I glossed over in that video was how did Lalo Salamanca know that Werner was dead? It was just sort of implied in that video, and I didn't really get a chance to talk about it. But anyway, so following the end of season 4 of Better Call Saul, that conversation that ensues between Lalo Salamanca and Werner Ziegler that I discussed in my previous video, we then see this meeting scene here at the Los Pollos Hermanos distribution center between Juan Bolsa, Gus Fring, and Lalo. Now, the point of this scene here was for Gus to be able to, I guess, have an alibi for the story involving Werner Ziegler here. So again, I don't want to get bogged down in too many plot details here because I feel like we kind of all know what happened. But anyway, following the sort of, Gus realizing that Lalo was tailing his men, and this led him to, uncovering this mysterious person, Werner Ziegler. Gus Fring then at the beginning of this episode, really, I kind of think back to Walter White being a good liar, but truthfully, I would say Gus Fring is almost even a better liar here in respect to, cultivating an alibi which explains his actions. So anyway, if we go back to the scene where Lalo goes to the stash house here when Nacho and Crazy 8 says that some of the scabs, I think, or I'm not sure exactly, but people were complaining that the product that the cartel is distributing to everyone is different. So this then leads to Lalo going to the safe house to sort of test the product. And when he goes there and looks at the little baggies, he definitely noticed that the product has been altered. And of course, it's very intriguing here because this alteration of these drugs were a part of the very long game that ensued here between Gus Fring and the cartel to sort of explain and rationalize the presence of Werner Ziegler here to Lalo. Of course, at the end of the day, the cartel and Juan Bolsa fall for the story, but Lalo not so much, of course. But anyway, so following Lalo's realization of the alteration of the product, this then leads to this meeting here, where long story long, Gus Fring basically says there was a man named Werner Ziegler who was working on a construction project on the legitimate side of his business. Then, of course, Gus Fring is lying here, saying that through an oversight, he became aware of the unlegitimate aspects of their business, and due to the temptation of the money that can be made in this business becoming too great, we then, sorry, I was distracted by the chat there. We then tell Gus that the temptation of the money was too great, so he stole two keys, of their product. Again, it definitely looks like cocaine, but it's outwardly described here as methamphetamine, despite the fact that it definitely looks like cocaine, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so he basically implies here, the rest of the story where my man tracked him down and the rest of the story, basically outwardly implying that Gus said that he tracked Werner down and executed him for this transgression. And then, Gus says he was, very embarrassed by this. I'm sort of editorializing here. And he then says to compensate for the two keys of product that was stolen, he replaced it with inferior methamphetamine so that the cartel would not be aware of this transgression that happened. So following this, of course, Juan Bolsa sort of believes Gus Fring here in the story, and Juan Bolsa's character is actually pretty interesting here. I really feel like he's the type of person who just kind of wants to believe everything Gus Fring is saying and has really fallen for this belief that everything is just about business to Gus. And he's, again, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but he's totally unaware of the fact that Gus Fring is trying to undermine the cartel. And it's sort of, he almost wants to be ignorant of Gus Fring's true intentions just because of how good of an earner Gus Fring is for the cartel and likely the great amount of money that he brings in. So anyway, following this, then Lalo says, of course, what construction project? And of course, again, in order to cover up his tracks here, that he's truly undermining the cartel, we then see Gus Fring show Lalo as well as Juan Bolsa this chicken chiller that he's building. So he basically had to build this entire project in order to establish his alibi here that Werner Ziegler was working on this chicken chiller and was not working on the secret Superlab. That's, of course, I feel like if they knew about this Superlab and Gus Fring was keeping it from them, this would raise tons of suspicions from the cartel, especially with the entire intention of this is for Gus Fring to eventually take out the entire cartel and have a complete means of production here that's what's the word I'm looking for? Secluded and, just out of sight and is totally, hidden from the law. So, and what's actually kind of interesting here is another aspect of the storyline that I thought I would discuss here is actually that we know here in this scene that Lalo Salamanca met none other than Mike Ehrmantraut here in this scene. And this is actually a really interesting component of the backstory of Breaking Bad, because even in this season, in the third episode of season 6 of Better Call Saul entitled Rock and Hard Place, the reason why Gus Fring wouldn't allow Mike to attend that meeting is because he couldn't let Hector or the cousins find out that he was working for Gus Fring. But what's really interesting here is that Lalo met Mike here, and I went back and watched the scene and listened very closely and carefully to the dialogue, and it's really kind of a little bit ambiguous here, where he says that, this is part of the legitimate side of their operation and how, as far as the German workers are concerned, their leader has just gone home and they know nothing about the fact that, he was killed for his transgression. But he says here that Mike is quote unquote his man, but again, his stature here in respect to whether or not he's in Gus Fring's legitimate side of the business or illegitimate was a little bit nuanced here and was kind of hard to tell. So that was actually a really interesting scene here for sure. And another actually really interesting piece of this dialogue here that Gus Fring says is that the reason why that, all this, trouble ensued where Mike threw Lalo's tail and then Lalo went to the travel wire and killed, Fred Whalen and burned it down. Of course, Juan Bolsa saying that's not how we conduct ourselves on this side of the border, this causing lots of trouble for the cartel. What was interesting here is that Gus Fring said that my man didn't know who was tailing him, and so he went through great lengths to, throw the tail. But again, it's kind of like, you wonder here if there's a suspicion here from Lalo or Juan Bolsa, how this is allegedly just a worker who's working on Gus Fring's legitimate side of the business, but he's also going after Werner and he's doing this good job to throw the tail here. So again, it's nuanced enough where I wouldn't call it a plot hole here per se. And if you actually go back to the very first time that Mike was involved with Hector and the cousins, it's kind of interesting. That whole storyline was kind of away from the cartel. It was kind of more just a Salamanca storyline. It didn't really have to do with the cartel. I'm almost even pretty positive that I doubt Hector even told the cartel about what happened there with Tuco in respect to Mike Ehrmantraut's involvement in that role. And it's actually quite interesting in respect to the witnesses to that meeting between Hector and Mike and the cousins. The other two people who were witnesses there, Arturo and Nacho, are now dead. They can no longer, say that they know Mike from that meeting there. So that's actually kind of interesting. And to tell you the truth, Hector doesn't say very much anymore, and neither do the cousins. So again, I definitely did notice this. A lot of people in my comments of videos, and I've seen on Reddit as well, talk about how Lalo did meet Mike, even though Mike says in season 5 of Better Call Saul that, the cousins or Hector will never find out. And I guess they do never find out. I feel like this story is more about keeping Mike away from Hector and the cousins more than Mike keeping Mike away from the cartel per se. And it's actually pretty interesting here. So even though Juan Bolsa believes the story, and it's pretty obvious that Lalo doesn't, we then see this meeting here that ensues in the very next episode entitled 50% Off, where basically Lalo goes to Hector to tell him everything that occurred in that meeting, basically saying Eladio and Bolsa may believe the chicken man, but I don't. He even says as much that he's planning something big, and he actually surmises, what is he building? Is he building a tunnel? Is he building a lab or a vault? Those are the things that he brought up. So, but again, Michael, irrespective of Michael's association to Gus Fring, I guess he didn't make a big enough impression to tell his uncle about, Mike Ehrmantraut. Because if he did, this absolutely would have raised red flags to Hector Salamanca, of course. But again, with Hector's lack of ability to communicate effectively this time, and just the amount of time and the logistics of communication here, I can actually buy it how Hector would never find out that Mike was working for Gus Fring, despite their history together. So it made sense to me for sure. And again, this plot hole here kind of, or not plot hole, but people kind of insinuating that this might be a plot hole is definitely something that I've thought about following this scene here of Lalo going after the Werner's workers when he also met Mike Ehrmantraut. And I did wonder, why didn't he go after Mike Ehrmantraut? So again, it makes enough sense to me where I'm not too I don't have too big of a problem with the storyline for sure. And yeah, speaking of Lalo saying, is he building a tunnel? Yeah, a lot of people have pointed out as well that tunnel there in Breaking Bad. And again, I'm not really sure the backstory of that. I don't remember that tunnel there from season 4 of Better Call Saul, when the Superlab was a key component of the plot of that season. I mean, maybe that tunnel has something to do with that last blast that they did to clear that rock in the episode entitled Wiedersehen in season 4 of Better Call Saul. But again, I'm not too sure about the significant meaning behind that tunnel. So, and yeah, it's actually kind of interesting here. We actually have 3 different stories here in respect to Werner's death. We have the story that I guess Lalo was kind of told the right story about how Werner was executed after he stole that 2 keys of methamphetamine. And now we also have the story that Marguerite Ziegler was told by Gus Fring and his lawyers, which is a completely different story as well. So, it's kind of interesting here. We definitely have 3 different stories here where the true story is that, Werner was forlorn for his wife and he escaped, and Gus Fring didn't want, him to disclose the information to the Salamancas, and that's why he was killed. He wasn't killed because of the story that he actually told Lalo in respect to him stealing the methamphetamine because the temptation was too great. And of course, finally, we have the third story of what Marguerite Ziegler was told about how there was a construction accident where, there was a cave-in and he saved all of his men. And, he was a hero to that extent. So, again, and kind of going back to this episode here, which, definitely was a setup episode for sure. And I definitely noticed a lot of people sort of, noticed that it was a setup episode and definitely not as exciting as the third episode, and was really hard to top that for sure. Just kind of going to the scene here. I definitely think just the whole premise of this build up here, even with this opening scene here of this slide rule that was, gifted to, again, it's not really clear if this was gifted to Werner many years ago or if this was some sort of fake gift that Gus Fring created in order to, sort of justify his alibi here, whether or not he made this and made it look like it was given to Werner by his workers. But again, I really think this sort of long setup here was for, this case basically, the case basically ran cold here in respect to Marguerite Ziegler's knowledge of Werner's activities, and he sees this here about his, in Liebe deinen Jungs, and again, she told him as well at the restaurant about his workers. So I really think that's the sort of next stage of the storyline here for sure. I could be completely wrong, and again, I have already tried to connect the conspiracy theory dots with Walter White and Jesse Pinkman appearing in Better Call Saul in the 5th episode entitled Black and Blue, which was totally wrong. So take this conspiracy with a grain of salt here too. But if we go back to how Lalo introduced himself to Marguerite Ziegler as quote-unquote Ben was the name he used. Again, kind of a random name. I guess they could have picked any American name because he was posing as an American here. But again, I definitely had to go back and look here. And if we look at the actor who portrays Kai in the plot of Better Call Saul, Ben Boom here, again, you do wonder, again, if they chose this name on purpose because, again, maybe Kai will die in the plot of Better Call Saul. I mean, they definitely named Max Arciniega after the actor Max Arciniega who plays Crazy 8, sort of to honor him to an extent, I suppose, because, he was sort of the first, not the first character, but the very first sort of major developed character to die in the plot of Breaking Bad. So you do wonder if they sort of picked that name because the actor, they named it after this actor here. Again, totally just a conspiracy theory for sure, but it just totally makes sense to me that these workers are going to come into the fold. Whether or not, all of them are, I mean, the main ones were, of course, Kai and Casper, and, the other 4 were more supporting characters for sure here. So, again, I definitely think that's where the story is going. And you would think, I mean, that was the entire point of this setup here, is that Lalo was looking for proof that Gus Fring is trying to undermine the cartel, and it really looks like this is the next stage of the plan here for sure. So yeah, again, the last scene we see of them here, where before they fly back to Germany, and again, it's also it's pretty standard affair here, but Mike basically says that your cooperation is required, moving forward, and your absolute just cooperation and not disclosing anything to anyone. If you do, there will be consequences. So again, I feel like, again, I wasn't really sure where the story was going, and you definitely think that these workers would just kind of have to come back into the fold somehow with, them not appearing since the very beginning of Season 5 and the story sort of culminating with them, but it definitely makes sense that they would come back for sure, because I just really feel like the storyline ends quite unceremoniously here in respect to their involvement in the Superlab, so it just makes sense to me for sure that this confrontation with Lalo and Kai just seems inevitable here. Kai kills Lalo, confirmed. Yeah. At Green Lizard Balls. That's funny. And actually, just kind of before I get into that boxing scene now, again, definitely quite polarizing for sure. Again, take what you will from these ratings and whatnot, but I definitely went back and looked at the ratings for at least the IMDb ratings. I think this is mostly just how fans view the show and just their sort of perception of it. But definitely Black and Blue was one of the more lower rated episodes of A Better Call Saul. in quite a while actually. I think 8 point. I mean, take what you will from IMDb ratings. I mean, they don't really mean anything. But again, it sort of kind of gauges the public perception, I would imagine. And with the first 3 episodes just culminating to that just unbelievable climax and conclusion in Rock and Hard Place. I mean, I was just absolutely blown away, and I was thinking, my God, this is the greatest season of all time. How do they ever top this after this 3rd episode? And definitely Hit and Run was definitely a setup episode, which I definitely feel like we needed for sure, again, to sort of just kind of settle into the storyline after this just unbelievable sort of conclusion in Rock and Hard Place. But for Black and Blue, I definitely wasn't expecting this big of a setup, and maybe the viewing public wasn't as well. I mean, maybe it was just, I feel like maybe there was maybe a little bit more anticipation about this episode. Maybe a lot of people sort of bought into this, overlap between the Breaking Bad title here and thought it would be a little bit more significance, and maybe that's why it was a bit of a letdown. Maybe, again, I'm just totally speculating here. I don't know what people are actually thinking. But if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the lowest rated IMDb episode since season 4, which was, I believe, Talk, if I'm not mistaken, which was also an 8.2. And this was actually a really interesting episode here as well, because I remember that this scene here, the shootout, was sort of, it was displayed to us that this shootout was going to take place in this episode entitled Talk, so really sort of ginned up a lot of interest when, this image was teased, and we really wondered what the iteration of this shootout would how it would be displayed to us on screen. And it was actually a little bit surprising to know that, I would say I was over 50% of the shootout was from Nacho's point of view, where we didn't even actually see it. It was him back in the car sort of listening to the gunfire and everything that was happening. I mean, there was a little bit of action here, but I really feel like it was a little bit of a, I wouldn't say letdown, but I just feel like it wasn't really what people were expecting in respect to the shootout scene that occurred here. I mean, there were other things that happened in this episode as well, that whole kind of storyline involving Mike Ehrmantraut going to group therapy and stuff to that effect. But again, just kind of interesting to know that, again, I wasn't expecting this much setup for sure in the 5th episode of season 6 of Better Call Saul. But again, kind of going to what we're seeing here, sort of display to us what is going to occur in the next episode of Axe and Grind. I mean, there are a lot of potential payoffs here for all of this setup, so I feel like, it is quite a wind-up here, so I hope when the, I don't know, it's sort of a baseball analogy, I guess. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I just hope there's a lot of payoff here for these two setup episodes that we saw back-to-back for sure, so. Salvatore, that's too funny, man. So yeah, and kind of getting back into this scene here now. I don't feel like I really I didn't really display my full thoughts on this scene here, and definitely after watching it a couple of times, I definitely feel like I've kind of cultivated an appropriate opinion about it for sure. But anyway, so this scene here with Howard and Jimmy, or Saul, I guess at this point, boxing again. Let me see here. So in respect to the story, I really don't have a problem with this scene, and I actually think it was it was a pretty good literary device, to tell you the truth. I definitely think I can see it, to tell you the truth. I can see this sort of culmination of the storyline happening, and it makes sense to me. I think I talked about this in my review about how I can see Howard Hamlin as being the type of person who would box as a form of exercise and be well versed in this arena. No pun intended. Someone who takes boxing classes and someone who's in shape. And as Jimmy said as well, Howard wanting an opportunity to beat him up legally, and this was really kind of, when Howard figured out what Jimmy was doing against him, it made sense to me for sure. But I don't know. I just feel like the execution of the scene on screen, I don't know if I was the biggest fan of it. Specifically the music, I don't know if we needed that sort of upbeat, sort of joking. I don't even know what type of music you would call it, but it was sort of like jovial, the music, and I really feel like, I don't know, I really feel like it's hard to make sports scenes in movies and TV not corny. I feel like they kind of just tend to be that way. It's really hard to not make sports movies not come across that way. They're really hard to do very well. Moneyball comes to mind as a movie that was, you don't even have to like baseball, and I feel like it was just very well done, and the sports scenes weren't too like over the top or corny or something to that effect. But again, I really feel like Saul Goodman's actions here in the scene where he wasn't taking the fight very seriously, I feel like that was enough. I feel like we didn't also need that sort of upbeat, like joking music that went along with it. I almost feel like it didn't even require a soundtrack at all. I really feel like if it didn't have that, I just wasn't the biggest fan of the music they put over the scene, to tell you the truth. I just feel like we saw just Saul's dismissiveness of the scene on screen. I think that humor would have been enough, and I really feel like you could have just had the sort of silence that was actually going on in this arena, because when this fight actually happened, if you would think about the story that way, there was no music playing, and it would just be a sort of quiet arena with Saul acting that way, and I feel like that scene would have been a little bit better, to tell you the truth. I think I'm okay with the premise, especially how it's definitely a plot development scene where, okay, Howard now knows about Jimmy and Kim's scheme, and where Jimmy even said that, why didn't he just walk away? I could have left him standing there like a schmuck. And then Kim says, because you know what comes next. Of course, we as the audience don't know what comes next right now. But again, we don't know truly how much this was a part of Jimmy and Kim's plan for Howard to figure out the scheme. Excuse me. I don't think this boxing scene definitely wasn't a part of the plan. But it seems as though the overt obviousness of what they were doing, especially with using the prostitutes again after Jimmy already used prostitutes back in season 5 of Better Call Saul, just the obvious calling card here. In that respect, it seems as though Howard discovering the plan may have been part of the plan. Again, we don't know. We're just editorializing here. We don't know for sure, but yeah, I mean, in that respect, I don't have a problem with this scene. Just in execution, I don't know. I feel like it could have been done a little bit better. I mean, I don't know who's the who was in charge of editing and putting the music overlay with this scene, but I feel like I would have done it a little bit differently. But truthfully, I didn't have too big of a problem with that scene. And now that we know that, not getting too far ahead of myself here with the next episode, but we know that Jimmy's gonna visit Caldera, and Caldera's gonna look over him after the the blows he suffered from Howard's punches in this, boxing match. That's okay. It's sort of a literary vessel in that respect, but I really feel like the execution of this scene wasn't on screen. I wasn't the biggest fan of. But if I was reading it in a book, if this was like a story that was described in a book or something to that effect, I would be totally fine with it. I feel as a literary device in respect to these two characters finally coming. The climax of, the relationship between these two characters being displayed to us. So, Michael Curtis, I enjoyed the boxing scene, but I can see why some thought it was a little out of place. Excuse me. Don't wanna apologize for that. But yeah, I mean, I think initially I thought it was a little bit out of place. To tell you the truth, after the second and third watch, I don't have a problem with it at all. I think it's a okay literary device for sure. Again, I'm just the one thing I feel like it was just a little bit redundant. I feel like the music, it was almost like we needed to be told that Jimmy wasn't taking the fight seriously, and I really feel like his actions displayed it clear enough for sure. So I don't know, it just feels like a little bit too. It's weird because I think back to that scene in Rock and Hard Place with Nacho looking at his reflection, and it was so subtle and so not obvious that I mistook it at the time for him looking at the reflection in his glass, of his drinking glass, when really he was looking at his reflection of the broken glass in Gus Fring's trash can. And actually, the director of that episode, Gordon Smith, said the reason why they didn't want to make it that obvious is because he felt like it came across as too corny. I think corny. He didn't use the word corny, but he felt like it came across as too much of a Last Week on Better Call Saul, a little bit too obvious. And that's what I felt with the music that they overlaid in the scene. I felt like it was a little bit too obvious. Like, we know that Saul isn't taking it seriously. We don't need to be, we don't need to be smacked in the face with it, with this music. So, and again, I feel like Howard kind of came across a little bit cheesy in his dialogue, but I was totally fine with that because that's the type of person Howard is. I mean, that dialogue where he says, you mistook my kindness for weakness. I'm sorry if I butchered that quote. I think that was it, or pretty close to it. But that sounds exactly like something Howard Hamlin would say. He is that type of character. He is very, I wouldn't say corny, but he's just very, that just kind of exemplifies his sense of humor as being the sort of corporate attorney. He can't be that edgy with his humor. He's a very, public figure. He's the head of a big law firm. It just kind of made sense to me for sure, Howard's sort of actions here in the scene. But again, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but just the execution of the scene, it wasn't, my favorite, but I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it as a literary device for sure. So Arena Vision, I haven't heard that about Peter Gould's reaction about the next episode. I haven't heard anything about that. So and also kind of getting it back into the fact that this was the lowest rated episode on IMDb. Again, take what you will from that. But I definitely feel like the big surprises and the big payoffs here in this scene. Again, maybe if you literally did not see any teasers prior to this season, and you weren't expecting that boxing scene or Lalo to go to Germany at all to be revealed to us, then maybe those surprises would be pretty significant. But the fact that we kind of already saw them coming with that boxing scene, as well as there was still plausible deniability with the sort of theory about Lalo going to Germany. And to tell you the truth, in the weeks leading up to that episode, I saw people all over the internet kind of predicting that theory for sure. But when they released that photo of the nameplate that said Alo mein Name es Lalo with the martini, they basically kind of gave it away that he was going to Germany. So that was kind of the big surprise there. The two big surprises, I really feel like, that boxing scene and the Lalo scene. Again, we already knew they were coming, so I really feel like it was a bit of a letdown when they were both displayed to us. And to tell you the truth, that's why I didn't mind the last episode as much, because I did not see that confrontation between Kim and Mike coming at all, despite everything that was revealed to us. I thought that was absolutely great. Totally thrown for a loop on that one for sure. Wasn't expecting Mike and Kim to interact at all in that episode for sure. That was just, I felt like that was a pretty, big piece of plot development that I didn't see coming. So really enjoyed that. And going back to Rock and Hard Place, my goodness. Despite everything that was released about that storyline, and despite everything that we saw leading up to that episode, and even during that episode, that twist at the end of that episode was just unbelievable. Talk about, I literally did not believe what I just saw. I was just absolutely blown away. I don't think I've ever been that surprised with a sort of scene in the entirety of Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, to tell you the truth. Nothing comes to mind off the top of my head. There have been some pretty amazing scenes. I thought Bagman for sure was one of the greatest episodes I've ever seen of Better Call Saul. I absolutely loved it. But, not as many sort of surprising twists. But that ending of Rock and Hard Place, I still could not believe what I just saw when I watched that episode for sure. So again, so a little bit of a letdown too. When you compare Black and Blue to an episode like that, I would see how definitely people would feel like it could not live up to an episode like that for sure. And maybe people were hoping for a little bit more action or something to that effect after that huge sort of monumental conclusion to the storyline of Nacho Varga. But again, we've definitely sort of labored here. We've definitely had a lot of sort of setup, and that there's nothing wrong with that for sure. But again, here's hoping that these payoffs will be just absolutely tremendous to all this sort of setup that we've seen here over the course of these last two episodes. So yeah, Chris, boy, Tano, yeah, I definitely agree that curly fries, the spice curls, Eureka moment. That was definitely good for sure. I didn't see that coming for sure. But again, it just nothing akin to the Nacho Varga. But yeah, that was definitely something when he finally sort of put two and two together, that was some good writing there for sure. I would agree for sure, Chris. Very out of the blue. Yeah, I'd say so. If you're a pun intended, I would imagine, with the title of that episode, at Hyperreal. So again, I didn't have a problem with the boxing scene per se. It was just sort of the execution. If literally, I feel like if you take away the music, I feel like the scene is 10 times better. Honestly, I was just thinking about, just imagine if it was just the silence of that scene going on, where you just saw Jimmy just sort of acting in that manner, which was clearly obvious that he wasn't taking the fight seriously, juxtaposed with Howard's absolute sort of, intense living in the moment in that boxing match. So again, I just feel like the music just didn't work. And I feel like music is really important. Music can actually completely just, change the way we perceive scenes, I feel like, over the course of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So again, I'm not really sure why they chose that song specifically. Again, I felt like it was a little bit redundant, you know. I feel like it was just a little bit too sort of, we get it. Saul's not being serious here. We don't need, we don't need it to be this obvious. But again, again, Powski Productions, again, to each their own. Again, it's absolutely in, like, I guess it's not for everyone for sure. The scenes of Mike and Saul in the desert in a Bagman, but it was definitely one of my favorite episodes. I don't know why. It's really hard to explain. Again, there's not that much action that just happens there, but it's more just the sort of just character development there, and just the sort of, I would say, just literary symbolism and things of that nature. I mean, that final scene when the space blanket floats away like a tumbleweed and he walks down the road, that just the metaphor of sort of Charles McGill leaving, him leaving him behind in that desert there. I thought that was just unbelievable literary symbolism there for sure. And I definitely enjoyed a lot of those scenes as well in that episode of Saul's interaction with the cousins, and I mean his interaction with Mike in that shootout. I don't know. It's hard to explain why I enjoyed that episode so much, but it was just an absolute sort of, I don't know. I like it was almost the cinematography of it. Again, it's hard to I didn't. That's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that. I forgot the person who commented that. Oh my goodness, Paul Sira. Thank you for the super chat, man. I appreciate it. Anton, you're doing a bang up job with all the content. Keep it coming. I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate the support. I really do. It means a lot to me that people enjoy watching the content. I'm humbled by it, man, that people like the stuff I'm putting out there, and I really appreciate the support, man, for sure. Again, thank you so much for all the support, Paul Sura. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Michael Curtis getting back into Bagman. I'm sorry, I missed the person who wrote that comment about. Oh yeah, Powski Productions again. Yeah, again, it was just the cinematography of it, just the sort of just seeing sort of Saul in that moment in his life when he really never experienced violence like that in his entire life. Just seeing his reaction to all that. Just again, I think a lot of the symbolism that was in that episode. There was just so much literary symbolism there with the world's second greatest lawyer mug being shot, just with the space blanket, just the interaction there. My goodness, Mike's speech in the desert about, what it's for. Again, just an unbelievable, monologue there by Mike Ehrmantraut that really added just so much, even more just depth and nuance to the tragic parable that was the story of Mike Ehrmantraut in the episode Bagman. And again, a lot of people definitely, one of the highest rated episodes, I think, on IMDb, if I'm not mistaken. So, but yeah, kind of interesting to see how Black and Blue was actually the lowest rated episode compared to in the entirety of season 5 of Better Call Saul. It wasn't rated that low. So again, I take what you will from these ratings, but again, I think it was I think people just maybe kind of bought into the red herring of the Black and Blue, and maybe people were just hoping for something much more, symbolic, or with a much more like Breaking Bad gravitas in this episode than was displayed to us. But like I said, if this not to get too far ahead of myself here, but if somehow, again, I'm almost certainly wrong here, so you can take this with a million grains of salt here. But if this knowledgeable contact becomes Patrick Kubi, then more power to all this setup as far as I'm concerned. So Will K. Lalo is coming for Kai? Absolutely, man. That seems completely like where the story is going for sure. And, with the sort of the epoxy slide rule being from the boys, the workers, I definitely think that's the sort of foreshadow we are going to see here for sure. And again, not to get too far ahead of myself here, but I remember I talked about this in a stream a couple streams ago about how the description line for plan and execution was very short, and it's apparently just Jimmy and Kim deal with a last minute snag in their plan. So again, doesn't even discuss anything about Lalo or Gus or Mike or anything to that effect. So yeah, it's crazy to think, we're pretty close to the season finale of the first part of season 6 of Better Call Saul. It's come and gone pretty quickly. I mean, there's a lot of story left to tell. We got 2 entire episodes left, and then we have 6 more after this, but it's very bittersweet. It's going by quickly. So yeah, Michael Curtis as well. I mean, oh my goodness. With Patrick Kuby and Bill Burr again, I've talked about this a lot. I mean, because I really feel like I was hoping we'd see him in season 4, in season 5, and now it's finally season 6. But again, I don't want to almost like, say it would come across as like pretentious, because it wouldn't. But it's like, why wouldn't Bill Burr be in Better Call Saul? I mean, this is just an unbelievably critically acclaimed television show, and I know he's an international superstar, and he's, has the highest Q rating, I feel like, of any cast member in this show. Maybe outside of Bob Odenkirk, I don't even know. I feel like Bill Burr might be the most famous cast member in Better Call Saul. If you just think about, outside of the just in respect to being a household name. I mean, he hosted SNL, for crying out loud. I mean, you're a pretty big mainstream superstar if you're hosting SNL. And I know he has a lot of projects and stuff like that, but if he I feel like it'd be kind of like big timing the show if he's like, yeah, I'm not going to be on it. Like I'm Bill Burr. I don't have to be on it. It's like, I feel like he's got to be on it. I mean, for goodness sake, he was going to be on it in season 5, but he had to pull out because a very close friend of his was passing away, and he had to see him. So again, I would almost be 100% positive that he would appear in this season. It would really sort of be a complete letdown where someone who was a member of Saul Goodman's A-team, who was right there with Hugh Babineau in some of the most critical plots of Breaking Bad, doesn't appear at all in the storyline of Better Call Saul. I mean, that would be pretty damn disappointing for sure. So. And someone actually mentioned Hugh Babineau as well. I think it might have been Justin Cruz. Talked about Hugh Babineau and working in Saul's office, and that's definitely something I've thought about as well. I think the only scene, if I'm not mistaken here, I hope I'm not being incorrect here, but I definitely remember that Hugh appeared in Hit and Run when that whole scam that ensued with Howard Hamlin's keys. And what's really interesting, I've talked about this in a couple of my previous streams, or maybe not a couple, one of my previous streams, about how Hugh Babineau didn't come into the story until season 4 of Better Call Saul, in the episode entitled Box Cutter, after Mike threatened to break Jimmy's leg, or Saul. Oh my goodness, he was Saul at the time, not Jimmy, or maybe he was Jimmy all along. Wink, wink. But after Mike threatened to break his legs in the episode entitled Full Measure, in respect to that whole storyline surrounding Jesse Pinkman and the rival dealers. After him being afraid of Mike Ehrmantraut is when Hugh Babineau came into the fold there in Saul Goodman's life, and he wasn't seen at all prior to that as well. And so you do kind of wonder the backstory there of why Saul didn't hire Hugh until season 4 of Breaking Bad. I mean, maybe he was there the entire time and we just missed him. I mean, pretty ironic. It's kind of hard to miss a guy like that, and it kind of reminds me back to the movie Disaster Artist, where that scene where Tommy Wiseau walks into the flower shop, and then the person working there is like, "Oh, Tommy, I didn't recognize you." And then Seth Rogen's character in the audience says, like, "How do you not recognize that guy?" It's kind of like, was Hugh really working there the entire time, but no one noticed him? I mean, I feel like he was kind of a hard guy to miss for sure. So I do wonder if they're just going to kind of play it up that way, where he was always Saul Goodman's bodyguard, but we just never kind of saw him. He was always there, despite the fact he wasn't there in season 2 and 3 of Breaking Bad. Or if they're going to maybe, kind of craft a story behind why Saul didn't hire him seemingly as his security guard until after Mike, threatened to break his legs at the end of season 3 of a Breaking Bad. So definitely something I'm looking forward to seeing for sure, Justin Cruz, when you bring up Hugh Babineau. So yeah, Joe Blow, Tortuga, I'd love to see that. I mean, I'd absolutely love to see at Green Lizard Balls. Hi, doggy. Oh, great callback right there. That's hilarious. But yeah, I would love to see Tortuga as well. I mean, he played a pretty small role as that sort of drug runner in the plot of Breaking Bad. And I definitely, I put together my Pepe Sylvia conspiracy board and really thought he was going to appear in Black and Blue, because he appeared for the first time in the plot of Breaking Bad in Negro y Azul at Joe Blow. But unfortunately, alas, no Tortuga in that episode. But, there's still time for it for sure. I mean, he doesn't have to have a big role. You definitely would love to see him interact with, oh my goodness, it'd be hilarious. I mean, very ironic and a little bit dark if we saw a scene with him and the cousins maybe, when they're the ones who ended up executing him. I believe in season 3 of Breaking Bad. Oh God, the episode's slipping my mind. It was the cold opening scene of an episode, maybe IFT. Again, don't quote me on that. When he got his head removed from his body in that scene. So I would love to see Tortuga for sure at Joe Blow. So yeah, at Trouble Path. He definitely, indebted to Vince Gilligan. You'd think so. I mean, it would definitely come across as big timing so hard if he didn't appear in season 6 of Better Call Saul at Trouble Path. I agree completely. And, I feel like a lot of people have like said, not a lot, but some people have definitely mentioned, oh, people just want Bill Burr to appear because he's famous, and people like Bill Burr. And it's like, well, that happens to be true, but also he's very crucial to the backstory of Saul Goodman, seemingly. He was right there in some of the most critical stories that ensued over the course of Breaking Bad. I mean, I guess I could try to pull up his character here if it's possible. But yeah, I mean, I could probably do off the top of my head, but I mean, I prefer maybe Huel. Click again. Last time I accidentally clicked on this and the vaping ad came up very unceremoniously. So again, he was a part of some pretty big stories, and again, he was a member of the quote unquote A team as well. So again, you would absolutely feel like you need to see him. I mean, every other sort of backstory character I feel like from Saul Goodman's life with Francesca and Huel Babinow has already been brought back into the storyline of Better Call Saul. We're just missing Patrick Kuby. So yeah, here he is. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Kuby's character. Yeah. So again, he didn't appear until season 4 of Breaking Bad, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, season 4, episode 3. This was which one was this? This was Open House. I believe this was the scene with when Skylar scans Bogdan to buy the car wash. So this was the first time that we saw him in the plot of Breaking Bad. And again, likely just a hired guy from who Skylar got through Saul Goodman. Again, we don't know the backstory, though. The backstory is pretty open-ended. Again, all we have from Steve Gomez here, which is, again, is what he said in, I believe, to Huel Babinow. I don't remember the episode. Was it Tahajali? Maybe. It might say it right here, but I remember them said, like, Boston PD ran him out of Beantown, and he, moved back to Albuquerque a few years ago, for the Sunshine. Again, there's so few concrete dates in respect to the backstory of Patrick Kuby. You can really craft it any way you want. So again, I mean, an open-ended story plus Bill Burr, that just seems like television gold to me. So a completely missed opportunity if Bill Burr doesn't appear. I think I've made my point pretty clear in respect to I really want to see Patrick Kuby in the plot of Better Call Saul. So at Marty Leo. Apparently, he was supposed to appear in season 5, but he was had to be written out because of a personal conflict, and they replaced him with Mr. X in what episode was it? Was it? No, it wasn't Wexler v. Goodman. Was it Namaste? Maybe I think it was Namaste, if I'm not mistaken. They probably have it right here in the trivia. No, it was Dedicado on Max. That's right. He was replaced by, again, I've seen his name Sobchak for the character Mr. X, but I've never heard him referred to this on screen, this Sobchak thing. I've always referred to him as just Mr. X because that's what he referred to himself as in that episode of Dedicado on Max where he was supposed to appear, but the role had to be completely rewritten. And you definitely wonder what that iteration of that story would have been because the sort of creepiness of Mr. X's character was definitely written in for him. And I would imagine that the details surrounding that storyline would have been not the same. It would have been more crafted for Patrick Kuby's character. So, again, that would have made total sense to me where that's where Saul Goodman got his sort of, PI. I don't know, maybe a PI contact. Like, it made sense to me for sure. Oh, Maximum Rock and Roll. Thank you so much, man. Good to see you live again, Anton. Keep up the great content. Man, I really appreciate it, Maximum Rock and Roll. I really appreciate the support in the super chat there for sure. So, thank you so much, man. I really do. Really appreciate it, man. But yeah, going back to Bill Burr, something I'm quite passionate about in respect to his appearance in Better Call Saul this season. But it actually made a lot of sense because in that episode, yeah, it was Dedicado on Max, not Namaste. I was wrong about that one. But I remember in that scene, Saul wanted to hire Mike Ehrmantraut to be his PI in respect to that storyline surrounding, going after Kevin Wachtel personally, but of course when he called him, he was down in Mexico in that great scene where he said he was in a tunnel. Absolutely hilarious, but he rejected his offer to do the PI work where he said, well, it's not for me and it shouldn't be for you, something to that effect. But he couldn't use Mike as his PI, so it would make a lot of sense where he'd have to go through the vet to get a different PI, and it would have made definitely a lot of sense to me for that being how Saul met Patrick Kuby for the first time, where he needed to hire a different PI because he couldn't use Mike Ehrmantraut. That story would have made a lot of sense to me as a sort of, origin story or the origin story of Bill Burr and or of Patrick Kuby and Better Call Saul. It's so funny. I'm talking about Patrick Kuby origin stories here, and sounds like something out of like the Marvel universe or something to that effect. But yeah, but alas, no cigar, and we got Mr. X there instead. But my goodness, I hope we get Bill Burr. I hope we get Patrick Kuby. So. Yeah, at Reeds, yeah, the Kuby and Huel duo is just as important to BCS as Victor and Tyrus. And that's actually a really interesting point you bring up at Reeds, is that, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe Victor and Tyrus ever had a scene together in the plot of Breaking Bad. I might be completely wrong about that, but I don't think I'm not, because if I'm not mistaken, Tyrus didn't come into the story of Breaking Bad until season 4, if my memory serves me correctly. And he basically, when he first appeared, again, I think it was 38 Snub, if I'm not mistaken. He first appeared in 38 Snub when he walked down the staircase, and Walter White thought it was Gus Fring. Yeah, at David Hawkins, they didn't, that's right. Because Tyrus walked down the stairs of the Superlab, and Walt thought that was Gus Fring. He was, going to his ankle, not his ankle holster, his gun in his waistband, his concealed 38 Snub, preparing to kill Tyrus. But it was revealed to us that he mistook Tyrus for Gus Fring, and it was actually Tyrus. And then Jesse says to him, "Are you the new guy?" And he says, "Yeah, you got something for me with the methamphetamine." And it was sort of implied in the time in season 4 of Breaking Bad that Gus Fring hired Tyrus to replace Victor after he slit his throat and killed him. But we now know from the plot of Better Call Saul that Tyrus was a part of the operation since the very beginning, and they had scenes, and he had many interactions with Victor. But of course, we never saw them together. Yeah, he replaced Victor, LOL. Yeah, that's right, he did at Benedict Jones, but the story was completely, I wouldn't say rewritten, but what the things that were implied were completely changed when we first saw Gus Fring enter the storyline of Better Call Saul in season 3. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I remember after watching that episode, I don't remember which one it was, but it was the one, I think, after Witness, if I'm not mistaken, when Gus Fring finally meets Mike Ehrmantraut for the first time. But I was very surprised to see Tyrus there because of what I just described about how it seemed as though he replaced Victor. And my first thought was, what was Tyrus doing the entire time over the course of Breaking Bad? Because we met Gus all the way back in season 2 of Breaking Bad, if I'm not mistaken, and we saw Victor there, being his sort of, facilitator, and was sort of a, I don't even know what you'd call him. I would sort of say like sort of soldier. I mean, I wouldn't say his like number 2, because I feel like Mike was more of that, but he was definitely a very kind of crucial, just like member of Gus Fring's operations who did a lot of the sort of like, he was almost like his like adjutant, if they use that word, or I don't know if that's the word or anything like that, but he was sort of like that. And anyway, yeah, I wondered what was Tyrus doing the entire time, because he was always with Victor in the plot of Better Call Saul, but like, why were they together in the plot of Breaking Bad? Again, I wouldn't even call it a plot hole. I mean, you could explain it away, but it just definitely not something we thought was going to be the case after it was really, as Benedict Jones said right here, and and David Hawkins and at Benedict Jones, how it really was implied that he was hired to replace Victor, but the story that was crafted in the plot of Better Call Saul was not the case at all. So that's right, Justin Cruz. Victor and Tyrus did not work together in Breaking Bad, but that's true. He was one of Mike's men for sure. So. At Ted McElwain, Kai is going to be a rat. Yeah, it is funny. He did say to Mike right before he punched him in the face, "I will not say a word of this." And it was actually kind of interesting. That's something I forgot to bring up when I was talking about that storyline a little bit earlier, but about how whether or not the German workers know that Werner is dead. And they absolutely know, because, I mean, when Kai said to him it had to be done, he was a good man, but he was, to be truthful, he was soft. And, of course, that insult did not sit well with Mike Ehrmantraut at all. I think I might even have that. Yeah, basically this scene right here where Mike then punched him in the face. So he knows, that all the workers know that Werner is actually dead, so. And Kai did say to Mike there that he would not say a word of this to anyone, but Lalo Salamanca can be quite persuasive, as we've seen over the course of Better Call Saul. So, again, he may not get the same treatment that Marguerite Ziegler got, but information will likely be told to Lalo by this man. And at Ted McElwain, he's going to be a rat. To use a Saul Goodman line, I think he may, if coerced in the right manner, I think he may in fact sing like Celine Dion. I think as Saul Goodman said, or spill like the Exxon Valdez, as Walter White said about Badger. So yeah, Mike O. Kurtz, that's a really great point. Mike wouldn't have a new guy picking up 200 pounds of blue. That's a really great point there, where it definitely seems out of place for for Gus Fring to hire a completely new member and give him that much responsibility. So he definitely was in the fold, and it does make sense for sure that the story that's been written in the plot of Better Call Saul, how he was always in the fold. But you do wonder, what was he doing the entire time? I guess it's possible he was always there. We just never saw him, like Huel Babineau in Breaking Bad now, with the backstory that's been cultivated for his character in the plot of Better Call Saul. But again, I guess time will tell in respect to the story that's displayed to us. Really great point there, Mike Ockhurts. I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. Awesome, Aaron 2000. Hey yourself at them. Hey, nice to see you. Yeah, Michael Kurt. It's definitely not the biggest deal. It's not a plot hole by any stretch of the imagination, and it's with the use of artistic license, it's very easy to explain away. So I would agree for sure. At Michael Curtis. Double O, what information will Lalo get from Kayak? I mean, he knows about the Superlab. He knows they were building an underground structure. Maybe they don't know where they were. I mean, he saw those trucks for Lavanderia Brillante, which were the trucks that, were taking them from place to place. I mean, as much as Gus Fring tried to conceal that, I mean, you imagine he knows about the laundry. He worked on that Superlab. So, as Lalo Salamanca said to Hector Salamanca in the episode entitled 50% Off, he even surmised that the three things that he guessed that Gus may be building were a lab, a vault, or a tunnel. And he even said a lab and how he's planning something big. And it was actually quite interesting. After this, they then had that discussion about, as long as he brings in money, he's protected. And then the rest of season 5 was more about trying to undermine Gus Fring in respect to, his ability to earn money with the cartel. And, trying to figure out the construction project wasn't a crucial part of the season 5 storyline at all. But Double O or Double O, I apologize for that name. Yeah, he definitely knows about the Superlab. He knows about an underground structure for sure that at this point in time Lalo does not. So he definitely has some very pertinent information that I think Lalo would like to know for sure. So. And it is kind of interesting. I think back to the scene of when he ended up killing Fred Whalen is when he first, I think I have it here too, when he first went to the travel wire, you know, he came across as just so unbelievably like personable and like charming. But of course, there was definitely something suspicious here. I mean, Fred definitely helped Mike, and maybe Mike's kind of story was more believable, but like, of course Mike was lying as well, but there was just something about maybe how Mike was a little bit like older, maybe, and maybe Fred wouldn't believe that like an old man like this would make up a story like this, but he definitely was suspicious of Lalo here. And, after Lalo, coerced him into saying, tell me what he told you, tell me what you told him. And when he said, no, I can't tell you, you're gonna have to go to the police, then he took it on his own accord to force him to tell him. And it is kind of interesting to think. You do wonder if kind of Fred just sort of gave in here and just gave him the information. You wouldn't imagine that Lalo would have to kill him, but with him having to coerce him like this, he definitely had to kill the witness here, kill the loose end of what he did. So. And it's definitely crazy. Lalo is quite the acrobat for sure. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I mean, this scene here where he jumps through the roof, I mean, how is that even possible? I mean, there wasn't a chair around there or anything. How would you scale a room like that and go into the ceiling and then come out the other side? And then I think about the scene where he jumped down in the ravine and when he scaled Marguerite Ziegler's fence, or what is it, the wall to get into her home, and how he jumped out of the window as well. He is quite the athlete for sure. He is quite the athletic man with quite the acrobatic skills. So, just kind of a tangent here for sure. But, definitely kind of a very kind of cool literary sort of, premise to Lalo's character that they've sort of written in here for sure. So it's just kind of interesting to see. At Mendoza's Coyote, you're too kind. I wouldn't say I guessed that. I mean, I saw a lot of people. I got that theory from just a lot of people commenting on my stream, and like I said, like I learned a lot from these live streams and the comments on my videos. Again, I don't get a chance to respond to all of them. at Mendoza's Coyote, especially with my videos, but I definitely do read them and I do learn a lot. And I saw a lot of people, mention that theory about Germany. That's been out there for a while, but I definitely, before the episode, I definitely read all those comments and it definitely convinced me. And that's definitely the theory that I went with, but it definitely wasn't my theory for sure. I definitely got that from out on the internet, and but after reading that, it definitely made the most sense to me. So for sure, at Mendoza's Coyote. So yeah, he was in Germany the whole time though. That's where he was. So the internet was definitely right about that one. The Negro y Azul Breaking Bad crossover to Black and Blue, that was totally wrong though. Yeah, add Benedict Jones. That sucks about Lydia. I would definitely love to see her for sure. You hate to see the creators hindered in any capacity, but it is what it is, unfortunately. So, at Mr. McHugh, absolutely. Again, we only need one scene or one piece of dialogue, but if we can just get a confirmation that Price is Danny who owns the laser tag, oh my goodness, that will be just unbelievable at Mr. McHugh. So I agree completely. Again, that doesn't even that much. That doesn't even need that much setup. We can just get one line of that somehow. I mean, maybe it's a little fan servicey, but I don't think so. I mean, we have that character Danny with all that setup. It makes absolute sense to me. I mean, the one piece of dialogue I guess they do need to adhere to is that Saul did say, when the stock market took a shit, and I definitely think he's implying of like the financial crisis of 07, 08. So we'd probably have to wait until the future there or something to that respect. So that might hinder the theory for sure. But at the end of the day, if it isn't displayed to us, we can always just sort of take artistic license as fans and say, maybe Price was the laser tag guy. Nothing contradicts it. So it can just be sort of a theory that we can always have at Mr. McHugh. So Joe Blow, Lydia the Tattooed Lady. Call back to Felina. That's right. Todd's ringtone. How can we forget at Joe Blow? At Beef Testosterone, well said. Well, I mean, yeah, well said. I mean, it's kind of blunt, but I tend to agree with you. Where I think that's one of the reasons why maybe people were a little bit felt sort of misled or disappointed maybe with this episode because, just red herring, absolute. I mean, that's the definition of a red herring, something that's a clue that's meant to mislead you. And that title was just absolute misdirection in respect to any real overlap to Breaking Bad or any sort of significant, very, very significant overlap to Breaking Bad at Beef Testosterone. So, is that a Groucho Marx song at Joe Blow, the tattooed lady? I didn't know that. If that is, okay, I'll have to look that up. I'll take your word for it. But if that's what you're referring to, I didn't know that was a Groucho Marx song. But yeah, just kind of like just tie a bow here on the Lalo Salamanca storyline in respect to Marguerite Ziegler. Again, I mean, I thought, like, despite the fact that they kind of blew the surprise here and really kind of gave it away before the episode, irrespective of that, I really thought that this scene here with Lalo sort of, excuse me, I don't know what happened there. In respect to Lalo sort of, I guess, I don't know, I would say sort of wooing Margarita, but actually it was definitely more manipulation for sure. I think I talked about it in my review. Someone mentioned this about the way he was able to manipulate her, and it definitely sort of just reminds me of that Netflix, I don't know if it was a mini series or something to that effect, on Ted Bundy, about how he was able to just be a master manipulator to his victims, and it's kind of very dark here and almost sort of eerie how Lalo was just so able to ingratiate himself with this complete stranger. I mean, this woman was just so trusting of this stranger. And I mean, Lalo Salamanca is just truly, again, I'm not a psychologist or I don't know anything about, I'm not well versed in this, but again, I don't know if the official definition would be like sociopath or psychopath, but just the way he's able to just use his sort of, unbelievable charisma and just his unbelievable charm and his good looks, and he's just so personable. He was able to ingratiate himself with this complete stranger and have her trust him completely. I mean, it's really weird to think how she wanted to invite this man in her home, but really he was absolutely using her and manipulating her completely for his own gain. So, just a really amazing exemplification of just Lalo's personality. And it really just made me think back to the very first time we saw Lalo's character, and I definitely didn't expect that at all when, the previous nephews of Hector that we've seen, of the cousins and of Tuco, were just so much more just sort of textbook villains in respect to their demeanor. But when Lalo, when he just was first smiling ear to ear, was just such a surprise to his character. But we definitely sort of know he's a true sociopath in this extent, or psychopath. I don't know which one I'm using, but just the way he can use that sort of, I mean, I feel like superpower is a very offensive term, but I mean, just the way he's able to use his sort of abilities as a manipulator over the course of this series is just truly unbelievable. So very eerie scene here for sure, where he was able to ingratiate himself with a complete stranger, and just how unbelievably trustworthy and personable he came across, and how she disclosed all this information about her personal life to this complete stranger who was absolutely using her. Just an unbelievably just very dark sort of eerie scene here for sure. And I know I saw a lot of people, I did wonder, there was some sort of tension there in respect to the sort of will they, won't they, in respect to will Lalo kill this woman. He was definitely prepared to absolutely kill her. I think that was the entire premise of him having the gun with the silencer, where if push came to shove, despite the fact where it definitely seemed like he cared about this person, it was absolutely fake, absolutely just all just self-serving of Lalo, and he absolutely would have, I feel like, killed this woman, and probably her dog too, to be pretty dark about it, with just absolute impunity to serve his own interests if push came to shove. So, yeah, very sort of just exemplification of Lalo's personality here in this episode, just very eerie for sure. And it really sort of, I mean, Lalo really reminds me of the sort of Hans Landa character in Inglourious Bastards. I've seen that comparison, and it really seems apt to me. Just the more and more I see his character on screen in this series. So. Michael Curtis, I agree. I definitely don't think he wanted to. He's not like a serial killer. He wouldn't just kill for no reason. But if push came to shove in order to serve his own interests, I think he absolutely would for sure. Yeah, I agree. At Michael Curtis. Again, DD. I'll take your word for it. I am not well versed in this arena at all, but I'll take your word for it in respect to the definition of Lalo's let's call it personality disorder. I don't even know if that's the right term. So. Yeah, beef testosterone. I actually made an entire video about this. Again, just the irrationality of just human emotions. I mean, I know Werner was very forlorn. I mean, yeah, that's a good point you raised about why he even did the job. I don't think it was about the money per se. I mean, maybe he just, just thought it was a good job. And maybe I did talk about his just, it really just came across as almost childlike naivete in respect to the man he agreed to do business with, Gus Fring. His just naivete of who this man really was, and how Gus is an absolute killer as well. And if you cross him in respect to his revenge against the Salamancas, he will absolutely kill you without a thought of it and sleep like a baby. And he will kill with impunity as well. I mean, just think about Nacho Varga and how he hindered him in respect to his overall grand scheme of undermining the cartel, and how Arturo was just a pawn in that story, and he just killed Arturo with absolute impunity. And with Werner Ziegler being a loose end, I mean, despite the fact that he most likely very much respected him as an engineer, if he had to kill him, he had to kill him. So again, just absolute just naivete of Werner for sure in respect to the type of job he was doing. And yeah, I definitely thought back to the fact that, as Mike said, I mean, if you just get this job done, after this is over, you will have the rest of your life to spend with your wife. I mean, people are away from their family for long stretches of time. I mean, much longer than Werner. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it was even a whole year. It might have been. Was it a year? It might have been. I think it was about 9 months, maybe. Nine. Again, I have to go back to the time lapse that occurred in the episode entitled something stupid. But I don't. It was right around a year, just under a year. And I can imagine he would be very forlorn. But I mean, it's not worth dying over to see your wife, despite the fact you miss her very much. So again, some very emotionally irrational decisions for sure by Werner over the course of Better Call Saul that really came back to haunt him in respect to his ultimate fate. So again, at Benedict Jones, I'm not really sure in respect to the grand sort of storyline, but I do wonder if we're going to see Hector in that cabin. You do wonder because, I mean, again, take what you will with the sort of dialogue in the scene, but Hector did say, you put your, old folks out in a house in the country like that, and you would imagine that Hector was living there for a while, maybe, not for just a little bit. But then again, he definitely seems like someone who can't take care of himself based on his current physical state. So, again, I'm not sure how or if it could connect to Gus Fring. I mean, I think it absolutely could, but again, I'm not sure about about that. But I definitely do wonder if maybe we'll see the very final place we see Hector Salamanca is that cabin out in the wilderness as opposed to living in Casa Tranquila. That would be pretty interesting at Benedict Jones. So yeah, Mike Okerts again. I don't know about the specific details, but you do wonder again. It wasn't even technically implied to us when this scene took place because Lalo was definitely missing for a couple of weeks. So again, we don't know when exactly the scene took place. I mean, it's likely it took place at the same time that everything else was going on. So maybe like 2 to 3 weeks since the start of the season. I mean, in respect to the on-screen timeline of Better Call Saul, but yeah, I mean, I have heard people speculate that as well. Like, how did Lalo get to Germany and all the logistical things that went involved with, getting all of his like clothes and getting having a place to stay. I mean, when he met Marguerite Ziegler, he was very well kept. I mean, you don't think about these things, but I mean, he would have to be like, well rested and showered and like, well put together. He couldn't have just been like, out in the wilderness or something. I mean, people, they perspirate, they sweat. I mean, that wouldn't, you only can make one first impression. Yeah, it's definitely sort of interesting. At Mike Okerts, the sort of logistical sort of backstory in respect to Lalo Salamanca, step by step basis by how he went to Germany. Again, I don't know if we'll ever see it. I think a lot. I mean, say what you will about the sort of very rapid advancements of the storyline, but at the end of the day, I really think like these sort of I guess you kind of call them gaps, but just the sort of lack of specific concrete details. We can always have this sort of ability to sort of editorialize on how Lalo did what he did because, again, we don't know the step-by-step process by which he, got that man back to his hacienda and then killed him and set him on fire and charred his corpse. And again, we currently don't know the step-by-step process by which how he got to Germany. But again, I have heard people speak about the fact that, he definitely has means. I mean, I feel like the fact that the cartel thinks he's dead, I mean, that might have some, effect on his ability to maybe, acquire, like, or not acquire, but use money and things to that effect. But I just feel like with Lalo's connections, I definitely think, he's someone who can plan out this trip and, get the right clothes and make the right preparations to, take part in this next step in his, quote unquote, cat and mouse game against Lalo Salamanca. So. Pablo Wayne. Jesus, I mean, dude, I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, come on. I mean, I get the point here, but don't like. I mean, a few more. I mean, I get it, but like a few more comments, and we're bordering on spam here. So again, dude, I mean, come on. I mean, someone asked this earlier in the stream. I mean, Casey Neistat has an entire video called "Why I Always Wore Sunglasses" with 16 million views. So definitely go back and watch that, and all of your questions will be answered. So basically, like 99% of what he says in that video basically applies to me. So. I mean, some of my favorite YouTubers wear sunglasses all the time. I mean, any Wonton Dawn fans out there? I don't think I've ever seen him without sunglasses. And I've shown my ugly face in plenty of videos, so you can definitely go back and see it for sure. But I don't know, man. That's funny. I guess at the end of the day, no engagement is bad engagement. So. Apologize for that. Water definitely can't breathe water. Don't try that. So anyway, where was I after I read that comment? But Yeah, so anyway, yeah, I mean, just sort of wrapping it up here. I mean, great episode for sure in respect to this storyline here. I really enjoyed the this sort of scene here with Lalo Salamanca and Marguerite Ziegler. Like I said, definitely an exemplification of his personality. In the grand scheme of things, though, I think, overall, with people sort of, rating it the lowest episode in maybe two whole seasons, the lowest rated episodes in season 4, lower rated than any episode in season 5. I think maybe people's expectations might have been a little bit higher than what they ended up seeing on screen for this episode. Like I said, despite the fact that I did like a lot of these scenes, I think a lot of the big payoffs were kind of spoiled beforehand and were kind of revealed to us before this, and it is what it is. So, like I said, I'm really looking forward to the next episode for sure. And at Badge Boy TV again, quite the very loaded terms here for sure, man. With an axe and with execution in the next two episodes, again, you definitely think there'd be a double meaning here. Maybe things aren't what they seem though. I mean, after my horribly wrong speculation in respect to any Breaking Bad reference from Black and Blue, I don't want to. I At this point, I'm gonna need a couple more days to sort of ruminate on it. What axe could mean. Axe and grind. I mean, we did see that one shot of that man in like what appeared to be a ski mask holding an axe. So again, I don't know what's going on there for sure, but Mike Oakhurst, yeah, maybe it is Casper for sure. Again, I'm putting my tinfoil hat on here in respect to they named Lalo's character Ben, and maybe that was a sort of very subtle foreshadow to the actor who portrays Kai, Ben Boom over here. So again, take it with what you will from that. But I'm kind of all aboard this conspiracy theory train here in respect to Lalo and Kai, the meeting happening. But yeah, I suppose it could be Casper. He was definitely the second biggest character in respect to the German workers. So who do you think was holding the axe in the trailer? Mendoza's Coyote again. I don't want to guess here because I'm going to be completely wrong. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea why or who's holding the axe. I mean, it really could be anyone. So again, I after putting myself out there with the Black and Blue, I'm definitely gonna play my cards a little bit closer to the vest. I mean, maybe I'll have an opinion on it in a couple of days, but for now, I couldn't tell you at Mendoza's Coyote. So yeah, some people are saying the guy was wearing a beard in respect to it being Mr. X, but again, I don't have it with me right here, but it definitely looked like he might be wearing a ski mask, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, if I don't remember. I feel like the guy might have been wearing a ski mask. Some people said it looked like he was wearing a beard, but I feel like it could have been a ski mask. So at Badge Boy TV, I'm not really sure. So Casper did have a beard at David Hawkins. I mean, yeah, it is true. I mean, I don't know. So I guess maybe one of the German workers. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. So we're really going down just the shooting blind rabbit hole here in respect to who's that man holding the axe. So again, I really feel like a lot of the big. I mean, like I talked about this a little bit earlier in the stream in respect to Black and Blue. I feel like some of the biggest surprises were kind of revealed beforehand, but with this episode, I mean, even with everything that's been revealed, I mean, I talked about it in my in a previous video about the best of quality vacuum business card and the car ornaments, aka air freshener of the Albuquerque Isotopes, and also the man holding the axe and the Xavier Añejo. I mean, they're big scenes, but again, I really feel like we really have absolutely no direction in respect to where those stories are going. So, I feel like after me personally being a little bit let down by that last episode, I really feel like it's going to be hard to underwhelm on this one with just everything that's been teased to us prior to that episode for sure. So. I really have big expectations for sure on the penultimate episode of part 1 of season 6, and I definitely think good things will come in this episode for sure. I think a lot of surprises are in store. Potentially a pretty big cliffhanger leading up into the part 1 season finale. So definitely looking forward to it. So at Res GCM. I don't think it'll be over mid-season. You wouldn't imagine that Lalo's story would be over mid-season. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but someone said that he wrapped up his filming for the 11th episode. Again, that I could be totally wrong with that. I mean, I heard that information from someone. I don't have any confirmation of that, but I wouldn't imagine his story arc would be wrapped up in part one. I guess it is possible. I mean, if you told me that Nacho Vargas storyline would be wrapped up in episode 3 of part 1, I would have told you were crazy. So I guess it is possible, but right now, I just don't see it. But I guess it is possible. But I think someone did say that he wrapped it up in episode 11, so I don't know. I don't know about that. So Nick Marazano again. I'm not so sure about that. That would talk about quite a twist there. I don't know. I don't know if I see that, but that would be quite the plot twist for sure. So yeah, I'm Michael Curtis. In respect to the mid-season cliffhanger, I imagine it's going to be quite something for sure. I mean, like especially in respect to the fact that we're gonna have to wait about 6 whole weeks until we see the eighth episode of this season. So yeah, and definitely going back to that trailer, I think I talked about it. I think every single scene from that trailer was from the first 4 episodes, if I'm not mistaken. So again, definitely nothing from part 2 has been teased to us for sure. You would imagine it's all been from part 1. Everything that's floating out there. So I can only imagine the cliffhanger for plan and execution, and just the amount of ruminating that we'll have to do prior to episode 8. So yeah, Badge Boy TV, I agree. I mean, like I said, there's definitely been a lot of story set up here for sure in Hit and Run and Black and Blue. But again, as long as the payoffs are pretty substantial, I think it'll be worth it for sure. I mean, maybe just a lot of people weren't expecting 2 setup episodes here with, there only being now what? I can't even do the math here. 1, 2, 3, or 2 plus 8 episodes left. So, I guess people weren't expecting that much setup, but, as long as the payoffs are big in these last 2 episodes, I mean, I think no one's going to mind, too much in respect to all the plot development that occurred in Black and Blue and Hit and Run. Yeah, I'm Michael Curtis. I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, but like I said, after watching the first 3 episodes, I literally said to myself, this is going to be the greatest season of all time. I mean, my goodness. I mean, my expectations have been exceeded tenfold in the way these first 3 episodes have went. But again, these last 2 episodes, again, I actually kind of enjoyed Hit and Run, to tell you the truth. I've talked about this. I enjoyed Hit and Run, but I mean, Black and Blue, maybe my expectations were a little bit too high, but again, I wouldn't say it was my, favorite episode of all time for sure. And, there's definitely certain episodes you tend to rewatch in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And I don't know if Black and Blue will be one of them. But, yeah, definitely wasn't expecting that. A little bit of a regression, I think, after having, like, just, A+ expectations after the first 3 episodes. But, I mean, again, maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh here in respect to the setup. And maybe they're really building to something just unbelievable that everyone's, is completely missing at this point, and it's being really hidden, and the payoff will be even bigger than Nacho's payoff that was just completely unexpected in the 3rd episode. So definitely can't wait to see what happens. Yeah, add Badge Boy TV, bittersweet for sure. It's like definitely enjoying it happening right now, but only 8 episodes left in this entire universe. It's kind of crazy to think about at Badge Boy TV. So. Yeah, Cinema Dave, I tend to agree a little bit. There need to be. It's again. I knew the fourth. I knew the neck. I knew Hit and Run would never top that. I was 100% expecting Hit and Run to be a setup episode, a plot development episode after Rock and Hard Place. But I definitely didn't expect this much setup for sure. But I feel like I'm repeating myself here. But you imagine with titles like Axe and Grind and Plan and Execution, you imagine we're in store for something pretty damn big in the next 2 episodes. So. Is that true at Raylan Givens about Bill Burr somehow being connected to that notebook again? I heard some people saying that it was decoded on Reddit, but I haven't seen anything to that effect. I think maybe that post exists. I mean, I haven't seen it. I mean, those 2 close-up shots we've seen of it, they've been absolute hieroglyphics. So, again, I'm not sure, about. I'll have to keep looking into that. People say that Notebook's already been completely decoded, but again, I haven't seen it yet, so maybe I'm just totally missing something. So, David Fox. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even mention that basically the entire. So you do remember, like, at the end of the day, with 8 episodes left, we're seeing Walter White and Jesse Pinkman. I feel like I kind of, completely forgot that after the last episode, after not seeing them, just because I was expecting to see them in black and blue and they didn't appear, it doesn't mean they're not going to appear in the rest of the season because they absolutely are. So that is true. We will see them at some point. And I did actually, I think before the season even started, I think I kind of speculated that they would appear in the mid-season finale to sort of gin up interest for the remainder of the second part of the series. And I probably should have sticked with that theory in respect to maybe having the potential to be correct. I kind of changed my opinion mid season to my black and blue theory, which was completely wrong. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong on this too. Maybe they won't appear in the mid season finale, and we'll still have to wait till to part two. So at the end of the day, not really sure. So Justin Cruz, I mean, after my last prediction, it's going to be a while till I make a concrete prediction after my total fail on black and blue. So is that true? Michael Curtis is on IMDb. Again, I'm not too well versed in like TV credits and stuff like that, so I'll have to take your word for it. And maybe I'll do some digging at another time. So yeah, Rest GCM. Yeah, it is Michael Curtis. All right, I'll have to go. Maybe if I'm desperate, I'll sneak a peek at that to quote Cosmo Kramer. So, but yeah, at Res GCM. Yeah, I mean, I've talked about how Vince Gilligan said he's currently in no rush to do another episode because it would just take so much effort to write an amazing series. But I don't know. Maybe part of me just thinks in the name of continuity, maybe we'll get a movie first of a Better Call Saul esque movie like we did with El Camino. Maybe I guess it's possible, but again, right now I'm just trying to live in the moment here and just enjoy these next 8 episodes. Not try to think El Camino Part Two at Trouble Path. That's too funny. But like I said, I'm just trying to live in the moment here and just enjoy these next 8 episodes. Don't think about how it's going to end. Just kind of enjoy it that it's going on right now. So that's kind of the plan, at least for me. So, but yeah, when it's over, it's definitely going to be quite the I don't even know. It's going to be just almost surreal, I would imagine. I've talked about how this is like when Breaking Bad ended in 2013. I thought it was over, and then with this whole iteration of the backstory, I mean, it's been going on for what, like 9 more years now. So I got 9 more years than I thought I would after Breaking Bad ended. So again, I'm gonna enjoy it for sure, and I'm not even really thinking ahead to the fact that it's gonna be over in a couple months. So yeah, Michael Curtis, that's definitely an impact. The aging in respect to anything being a prequel, and I got my hopes up again at Jack Ocarina. I'm so sorry with that name if I mispronounced it, but I have heard a lot of people talk about that Gus Fring and Chile thing, and I even brought up the potential of you know, maybe using that Irishman technology. But I talked with someone who knew about that, and apparently it's really damn expensive to do that technology. So I mean, with just the nature of television, I mean, I know writing great stories is great, but they have to make money on these projects. I mean, these are for-profit corporations. They're not going to lose money on something. And again, I don't know how like streaming and like the lack of like people like cord cutting and factors into all that, but I would absolutely love to see Giancarlo Esposito in a at Jack Ocarina in a sort of prequel to his time in Chile. If you could use that actor, because Giancarlo Esposito knows all of Gus Fring's mannerisms and everything to that effect, as opposed to having to have a new actor portray him. Again, didn't people like? I don't really watch Star Wars, but didn't people sort of not really like that Han Solo movie that much? Weren't the ratings for that not the best when you had to have a different actor portray that character, because obviously Hans, or what's his name, Harrison Ford, can't portray like a 20-year-old version of himself. But yeah, unfortunately, apparently it's really damn expensive to do that de-aging technology. So definitely not. I'm not, because I heard that, I'm not really holding out hope on that spin-off. I know that Giancarlo Esposito we're doing another project with AMC, And I think that what's that show, Dark Winds or something like that, that show that we always see commercials for during Better Call Saul. I think what's his name? Oh my God, Bitsui is his name. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. What's Victor's first name? But anyway, the actor who plays Victor is definitely in that, and that's an AMC product as well. Is it Jeremy Bitsui or is it something else? I might have totally just screwed up his name there. But yeah, I know he's in a different project for AMC, so maybe the point I'm trying to get at here is maybe we could see Giancarlo Esposito in a another spinoff, but I'm not holding out hope. So that's funny. Beetle Beetle. Yeah, I mean definitely interesting to see. Gus Fring in this way, just being, his lack of control. I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing there, but just the lack of control for sure. Gus Fring is definitely doesn't do well when he's not in complete control of his surroundings, and definitely that one scene of him cleaning that bathtub with the toothbrush. It's sort of like him almost like just like mentally overcompensating, where the lack of control in respect to his knowledge of Lalo attempting to I guess kill him. He's sort of I guess manifesting that in sort of his micro control of like cleaning a bathtub with a fine tooth toothbrush or whatever, sort of trying to micro control things he can't control. Apparently, I don't know. Again, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, definitely sort of interesting to see Gus Fring in this manner for sure. So at Justin Cruz. Yeah, I mean, I don't really watch them like cover to cover anymore. I've probably rewatched Breaking Bad cover to cover like a couple times, probably like 3 or 4 times maybe. But now, I mean, with me seeing it as much as I've seen it, I definitely kind of just go back to the very specific episodes and sort of rewatch kind of certain things. Sort of, right now I'm sort of looking at I watch different episodes to like kind of like go back and look at kind of the backstory, how the backstory of Breaking Bad affects Better Call Saul. So again, I'm not. I feel like I've already kind of rewatched the series from cover to cover. I mean, maybe I'll probably rewatch season 6 of Better Call Saul for sure because that just came out. But in respect to watching like the entirety of Breaking Bad again, I've probably done that enough for one time in respect to watching it cover to cover. So that would be funny. The Adventures of Badger and Skinny Pete at Wayne Ball. Yeah, wasn't the original, like one original iteration of this series supposed to be something to the effect of like a sort of half-hour comedy? So maybe we'll get that. We'll get the sort of Badger and Skinny Pete comedy. No, I don't know. I'm just totally being facetious there. But like I said, the only thing that I think that's been confirmed in respect to like being green lit is that sort of Slip and Jimmy animated spinoff. I've sort of talked about that. Again, very mixed feelings about that. I don't know if I'll be watching that for sure. Maybe kind of need to take a break there. I may have to sort of kind of gauge what people think about it first before I ever watch that cartoon. But who knows? So yeah, Michael Curtis, like how far we've come for sure. Talk about quite a difference from a 30-minute court comedy. I mean, that would have been funny, man. There's no way they would have developed this nuanced, complex backstory for Saul Goodman for sure. They likely would have just made him that very shallow, crass, comic relief criminal lawyer for sure. It really wouldn't have made sense to sort of craft this unbelievably nuanced and deep and complex backstory for his character act, Michael Curtis. So, how far we've come indeed. I agree. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to end it there. It's kind of a long day for me, but anyway, I really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. It was really kind of nice to sort of cap off my kind of final thoughts on this episode for sure. I really appreciate all the super chats and support that I received during the stream as well. Right now, I'm planning on being live on a Sunday, and I'll discuss definitely more of the episode that's to come, Axe and Grind. I'll, talking about the. I kind of already discussed the teaser trailer, but there's definitely been some really kind of interesting scenes that have been and photos that have been displayed to us. So yeah, even in respect to at Ted McElwain, in respect to Clifford Main's son, yeah, definitely we'll be talking about that. I got some theories about that for sure. At Ted McElwain. So yeah, for sure, definitely going to be planning on talking. A lot of interesting photos have been released for sure. Prior to the next episode, so I will be live on Sunday night to discuss that for sure. Again, really appreciate all the support tonight. Really appreciate all the comments and everything like that. I learned a lot, as I've said in the past. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you guys around. You as well, Ryan Buckley. Have a great night and a great weekend, everyone. And I will be live again on Sunday prior to the next episode. See you around. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it.